Tell you a little bit about myself and social dynamics. So I'm a psychodramatist. And a psychodramatist, instead of a traditional person who does skills intervention, therapy, coaching, it's not about what you're saying. It's about what you're doing. So it's show me, don't tell me. Don't tell me your story, show me your story. Because if you show me your story, then I can actually work with it. I can see where things go wrong, where things don't work, where the places that we need to tweak. But I've got to see the actual story. So seeing the story actually leads to what my business is, which is Social Dynamics. So Social Dynamics is a business where I work with kids who've got high anxiety, social anxiety, people who are on the autistic spectrum, usually kids who are more high functioning because of the level of the type of work, and I'll be getting into that later. Or kids who might have any other thing that is, as I call it, just getting in their way. And if it's getting in their way, we want to get it out. But we want to get it out in action, because getting it out in action really gets to the point, gets to the heart of it, and really can work on the problem because we're seeing it, we're in it, we're being it. Well, I got into this type of work, it's kind of funny. So I'm an attorney. I am also a divorce mediator. I am also a life coach. None of those seemed to work for me as I went through my journey to become a psychodramatist. After I was a life coach, my youngest son was 2 years old, and I was deciding again, what am I going to be when I grow up? So I went to Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Lesley is a expressive therapies university and school. And expressive therapies are expressive interventions, expressive modalities to help people in the therapeutic world. So one of those modalities is something called psychodrama. So I took a course in psychodrama. Now, psychodrama sounds way scarier than it actually is. Psychodrama is pretty much the drama of the person, the story of their lives. And then the person who is the director, the leader, helps the protagonist, the person who is the star of their life, helps them go through that journey and find out the places where they needed help, they needed work, they needed more support, whatever they needed, so they could continue on the journey of their life. So I became a psychodramatist. But going to one class at Lesley University didn't make me a psychodramatist. So I spent 11 years training to become a psychodramatist, because it's a very intense type of modality to train in, because again, we're going into the drama of the soul. And the other thing that's sort of interesting about me and what I've been doing for X amount of years is that throughout it all, I have always been a performing artist. I did professional improvisational comedy from, let's just say I did improvisational comedy. I did improvisational comedy, and I still do improvisational theater nowadays. So through it all, I was always a performer. I was a professional improvisational actor, and I was a professional actress in Boston for many, many years. And doing improvisational comedy professionally was fantastic, and I loved it. But I was like, all right, am I going to go to what am I going to do with this? But I loved it. And so by using those skills, those improvisational skills, I use them in my work. And I bring them forward, because what you find is that even though you see improvisation and you think, oh my goodness, they're being so spontaneous, it's so right in the moment, there are actually rules to improvisation. And the rules to improvisation are actually the rules to social interaction, the rules to conversation, the rules to group joining. It's the rules of how to be with other people. So it's perfect when you're doing any type of pragmatic skills class, any type of pragmatic skills workshop. People only have fun, and they're actually learning something, but they're having fun too, but we don't have to tell them that much about having fun. So how this all started was that when I was in my training to become a psychodramatist, I needed something to do when I was not at my institute. So I went to the Aspergers Association of New England and said, I want to do an improv group for young adults who are on the spectrum. And the woman who is the director of the Aspergers Association of New England said, no, that's not what we need. We need a dating group for young adults. So being an improviser, I was like, okay, I'll do that. having no idea what I was going to do. So what I did was, as I was going through my training, I used it in the workshop as the workshop was going along. Because I asked the director when I said I would do this workshop if I could do it in action, if I could do it as a psychodramatic techniques, use them. And she said, sure. So I started doing that group and used it and used things that I was learning in the moment at my institute and bringing them back to the group. That group ran for 3 years. And there's already 2 people in that group, one who's married, one who's already in a long-term relationship. And it was great. What can they expect? That's kind of a hard one, because every group and every workshop and every even individual one-on-one session is always different. And it's always different because it's spontaneous. And when I say spontaneous, again, it's not that it's just off the cuff or I'm making it up. I work with my groups and I work with my clients. It's their story. It's their workshop. So what they're bringing in that day, what they're bringing in to work with, that's what we work on. But what you can expect is I spend a great deal of time group building. Group building is incredibly important in any workshop, in any group. And the reason is because you want the group to feel safe. You want the group to feel like they trust everyone. And you want the group to feel like they're not alone. That other people in the room, other people in the group are experiencing the same thing, are experiencing the same feelings, the same issues, the same roadblocks. So everybody can work together and everybody has they're on the same page. So I work very, very hard to make sure that my groups are groups that people can really work together. They're cohesive, that they're groups where people want the same goal. So the groups I run anything from dating to teenage skills groups to parenting groups, couples groups. I do family work with my husband, Dr. Jonathan Bass. But the other things you can expect, so I spend a great deal of time group building. And by group building, I use also more psychodramatic techniques. I use something called a spectrogram. A spectrogram is a measurement. That's all it is. It's a measurement from 1 to 10. But when people get up and they stand on whatever I'm posing as the question or the issue. So let's say the issue is about a couple. And so I ask the group, so how well do you communicate with your couple? So one answer is, great. We are the best communication. We are we can have conversations all night. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is we can't talk to each other at all. So then I ask the group, stand up and put yourself somewhere along that line. So by doing that, they're already group building, they're talking to each other, they're finding out each other's issues, each other's concerns, they're getting to know each other on a different way than a name tag that says, hello, my name is Carol. This way they're getting to know each other around the issue. They're getting to connect. So I do that. I do other psychodramatic techniques. So other things that they can expect from my workshop is they're all in action. I use real live scenes from people's lives. I don't use scripts. I don't use role plays. Role plays are when I assign a role to a person, where I say, you're mom today. Today you're going to be son, but not who they are. I want to assign the role of, okay, you're you, and who's your mother over here? Those are the work I do. I work with the real stories. And by working with the real stories, I see the real issues. And they see the real issues. The whole group sees the real issues. And that's the key. Because hypotheticals and scripts, they run out. You want to not be so scripted that when you're searching for something to do in a situation, the other person doesn't have the same script. The other person doesn't have the same lines, so what do? So it's important to work in the moment on real situations. And they can also always expect improvisation. Because improvisational games and improvisational techniques are all part of the whole thing. They're part of social interaction. They're part of play. Play is incredibly important. It's important to know how to play, especially if you're afraid or if you're not a risk taker or if you always feel that you're going to make a mistake. You're going to be the person that's going to do it wrong. you're going to be the person that's going to mess it up for everybody, or no one's going to listen to you, or no one's going to care about what your idea is. But if you bring it all into play and you say, you know, it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to play. It's okay to expand this and to expand your being spontaneous. It eases up all the tension. It eases up all the feelings of not being safe. It does everything. So there's lots of laughs and there's a lot of deep work. Some of the populations that I work with people who are on the autistic spectrum. I work with people who have social anxiety. I work with people who are stuck in however way they're stuck. You know, I mean, there could be so many reasons. You could be stuck because you're scared. You could be stuck because there is something that's going on neurologically. Or you could be stuck just because you're stuck. So that's the sort of the population that I work with. I work with couples where someone within the couple may be someone who's neurodiverse or has a different neurology than their spouse. So I work with them. That's often on communication and really helping them translate what they're saying to each other. Because couples, where they get in trouble, especially the neurodiverse ones, is when this one's speaking English, but this one's speaking some language that hasn't even been invented yet, and they don't know. So what's happening is that they're speaking completely different languages to each other, and they need to be able to learn how to interpret. And I work with families. So I work with families where somebody is identified as being in the autistic spectrum, who is identified as having autistic spectrum disorder. Families where somebody is identified as some neurologic issues. So my husband and I work with families. My husband, Dr. Jonathan Bass. He and I work with families where someone in the family is identified as being somewhere on the autistic spectrum or has hyperactivity or attention deficit or any other neurologic issue that may be getting in the way, or very, very high social anxiety that is also getting in the way. The issue with families is communication. Families have a hard time communicating with each other. Therefore, they have a hard time connecting. They have a hard time understanding the issues that are actually tearing them apart as families, that are breaking down the connection that they have as families. So those things need to be pointed out. And again, when we do that, when Jonathan and I do work with families, we work in action. So we're seeing the issues, we're seeing the scenes, and everybody is equal. The teens are equal, the parents are equal. Even if you're 6 years old, you get a voice. So everyone in the room has a voice. And what that does, especially for some teenagers or young adults who have never had a voice, who've always been told, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, oh, that was a mistake, that was a wrong thing to do. They get a voice. They get to be heard. They get to be able to say, I didn't make a mistake. I didn't do a wrong thing. I didn't do something bad. I was just me. Just understand that I'm me. And I want to be seen and heard that way. And that's not saying that anything is wrong in these families, or that parents are doing something wrong, or that parents they're not finding the right things, it's not anybody's fault. It's always a matter of understanding what's going on underneath, understanding perspective, so that you can actually put yourself in the other people's shoes. One psychodramatic technique I use often is called role reversal. And role reversal is literally that. It is reversing role with the person who you want to tell something to, communicate better with, ask something of, but they happen not necessarily to be in the room. So we can either use an empty chair, and we can use one of the scarves. I have tons of scarves. There is one client I have who calls them the scarves of power, which I have permission to use that. So the scarves of power. So we use a scarf on an empty chair to designate somebody. So let's say you're having problems talking to your mom, but your mom's not in the room. So what we do is we pick a color to represent mom. Let's say we pick pink. We put pink on an empty chair. And what we do is we actually tell mom what we want to tell her. But mom's not there to answer, and the only thing we can do is try to understand her perspective and what she hears when she hears what we're saying to her. So the way to do that is to actually reverse roles. So now you become your mother, and you hear the words that were said to you, but you're hearing them as your mother. So it's a completely different place, it's a completely different role, and it's now you're in her shoes. So it's no longer you against the other, you are the other. So now we learn really what's going on. Action-based activities. So what I mean by action-based activities are a lot of my psychodramatic techniques, some theater games that I know from being an actress and an improviser, improvisation, improvisational comedy, because everybody likes to laugh. But when I say action, it means that you're not just talking to me. You're up and you're showing me. You're showing me in little scenes. We do these little scenes of things, but we set the scene. Where are you? Tell me what's in the room. Tell me who you are. Tell me how you're dressed. Tell me what you're wearing on your feet. We set the entire stage, just like a drama, just like a theater. I'm the director and you're the actors, but we've got to do it in action. Because there's many, many studies done that say that actually the connection that the mind has, the more senses you use, the better the integration of information. So if we're using action and listening and using our bodies and movement, we're integrating more because we're learning it from all different angles, from body, from mind, from movement, from everything. But other things that I do, psychodramatic ones, there's a technique called doubling. So doubling is a technique where oftentimes we don't really say what we're thinking or feeling. For the sake of, we don't want to offend the other person, we don't want to get them upset, we don't want to get them angry. But oftentimes the words that are not said, the words that are unsaid, or the feelings that are unexpressed are what we want. Those are the things we want to work with. But often people just don't say those out loud. So what doubling is we try to guess. We try to guess what's going on underneath those words. But we do it based upon actual information that we get from the words. So it's not out of the blue. I'm not trying to read anybody's mind, nor am I encouraging any of my group members to read anybody's mind. But in a conversation, let's say, where we're back to a conversation with somebody that you're angry at. If the conversation is, I don't know why you broke my toy, and the other person says something, I don't know, I just wanted to. Well, what would be the double? The double under, I don't know, I just wanted to, would probably be, I'm really sorry, but I don't want to admit I broke it because you might get mad at me. So what you do in those situations is you say to the person who said those words, I don't know, I just did. You try to double them. You say and you try to guess at what's really underneath. I'm afraid if I tell you I did it, you're going to be mad at me. And then you check. And you say, did I get it right? Did I get that right? And if you did, you move on. But if you didn't, and you got it incorrectly, you use just as much, you can get just as much information from the incorrect statement as from the correct statement. The incorrect double and the correct double can give you as much information as you need, again, to move forward. I'm very goal-oriented. If I have a group that's a dating group, that's what we're working on. We're working on what people in the room want. If I have a group that's parenting on the same page, that's what we're working on. It's goal-oriented. It's how do I become not a better parent, but how do I become a more available parent? How do I become a better understanding parent? How do I learn my child's language? It's not a matter of if you're doing it wrong, if you're doing it right. It's how do I learn their language? And how do they learn mine? What I enjoy most about my work is, of course, the people I work with, but I also love that it can be in the moment. It can be action. It can be movement. It can be constant sort of change, constant dance, constant following what's going on. It's a in the moment, expressive, lively, not stagnant environment. It's a constant energy. It's a constant enjoyment. Everybody is enjoying and learning simultaneously. What they most enjoy usually are the improv games, especially if they're the teenagers or the young adults. But again, my improv games are for a purpose. Every one that I choose has a reason. It has a reason because I use them for social skills. I use them for how to make a conversation, how to join a group, how to let go of your own agenda. So even though they're the most fun for a lot of teenagers and young adults, they actually have a purpose. The other things that people say about my groups, or about my individual work, or about couples work, and definitely family work, is we've never gotten this far before. We've never been able to get past this block before. I didn't even think of looking at it that way before. Or, this is the first group I've been in that I felt safe in. This is the first group I've been in where I see myself across the room. I don't feel alone. I feel like people are listening to me. I feel people are empathizing with what I have to say, what I'm going through. And I feel that I'm heard. Those are the most important things. So the feedback that I get from people in my groups is that they're liking it. And that the feedback that I get in the moment is that they're questioning. And they're constantly adding. And they're constantly sort of upping the ante for me. So if you're upping the ante and you're trying to go forward and you're trying really personally to progress, the fact that I can give that to them in the moment, that I don't have an agenda, that I don't have a script. Because what I get from most people is, wow, this was not boring. This was actually something I could sit, be in, and learn something from. So that's the most important thing. If I find that it's not boring, then we're 99% there. The way to find out more about my programs is I'm on LinkedIn, my Facebook page, which is Social Dynamics, and my website. On my website is a sign-up sheet, and you can sign up and I can send you information about upcoming groups, upcoming workshops, where I'm going to be, even upcoming performances that I'm going to be participating in, because as I said, I still perform improv today. You also can give me a call. You can find out more about me at my Facebook page, which is Social Dynamics, and you can go to my website, which is socialdynamics.net. I'm always open to new suggestions. I'm also open to new groups. So if there's something that I'm not offering at the moment, call me and we can probably find it. And because the way I work with what people want. And then I can work with that. It's not about what I want, it's about what people want. So if you tell me a suggestion for a group, there probably are other people who are going to want that group too. Social Dynamics, I have groups called Couples Dynamics, and sometimes I have an offering of weekend couples groups, or I offer weekly couples groups. I also work with my husband, Dr. Jonathan Bass, who is a psychiatrist and psychopharmacologist and child and adult analyst in Needham, Massachusetts. And I have totally converted him to action methods. So he and I do family work together. And the family work that he and I do together is incredibly effective. And that's what we've been told by families that we've worked with. It is effective because, again, we create a safe space for kids to be able to say and to express to their parents in action their feelings, their frustrations, their anger, and to state, this is my perspective, this is my voice, hear me. So when Jonathan and I work together, that's the environment we create for both parents, kids, anyone who is part of the family. And we invite it all. We invite whatever stories you have. Bring your stories. Bring what we can work with, because that's the bottom line. Your stories are the things that are going to be the things that help you the most, because your life is really where all the answers are. I just get to bring it out. At Social Dynamics, I work with a variety of different populations and people. My work is obviously open for everyone, and everyone can benefit from the type of work I do in action. At Social Dynamics, what I found is that the populations that this particular method works the best with are people who have autism spectrum disorder, hyperactivity disorder, nonverbal learning disorder, and social anxiety disorder. It is a method that can work well with everyone. And I certainly do work well with everyone. It doesn't matter if you have a neurologic disorder or not. But what I found is that showing in action for people who have these neurologic deficits, these neurologic disorders, which don't make them abnormal. It makes them normal, but they've got something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to be smoothed over, something that they need to be shown, because sometimes people who have certain disorders cannot see the way they affect other people. They can't see how their actions, their words really land on other people because they're just not in their shoes. But by doing it in action, by role reversing, those people can actually be in the shoes of the people and understand, oh, so this is how it feels when I'm standing too close. Or, oh, this is what it's like when I just keep going with my idea, my idea, my idea, and I don't let anyone else in. Or, this is how to start a conversation. So many different things that when you're in the role of the person who doesn't understand you, you can teach them to understand you better because now you understand what it is that they're seeing, what they're experiencing from you. So that's why this method is so important and has worked so effectively with people who have those type of neurologic disorders.